Let me ask you something. What would happen if, for just 3 days, you silenced every voice of doubt and only allowed your mind to echo power, purpose, and prosperity? You see, most people are living in the prison of their own conversations. The enemy isn't out there, it's in here, right between your ears. But what if I told you that you could rewrite your entire future by changing the way you talk to yourself for just 3 days? Your words shape your world. And that's not just a motivational catchphrase. It's a foundational principle that governs the outcomes of your life. The things you say, especially the things you say to yourself, are not neutral. They're creative forces. Every word you release sets something in motion. Most people live by default, reacting to life instead of creating it. They speak what they see, and as a result, they keep seeing what they speak. But those who understand the power of speech use their words as tools, not just expressions. They speak what they want to see, not what currently is. The difference between people who rise and people who remain stuck often comes down to conversation, internal and external. It's not the economy, it's not their background, it's not the resources they did or didn't have growing up. It's the words they repeated over and over until those words became beliefs, those beliefs became habits, and those habits became results. Every time you say something, your subconscious mind hears it, and it starts constructing your reality around it, whether it's good or bad, truth or lie. If you constantly tell yourself, I'm not good enough, this is just my luck, or nothing ever works out for me, guess what? Your mind gets to work proving you right, not because it's cruel, but because it's obedient. The subconscious doesn't filter, it just follows. So if you want different results, you need different instructions. That means changing the script you're feeding your mind. When you say, I always figure things out, or I attract success because I provide value, you give your brain a new blueprint to build from. Words are seeds. They don't produce fruit immediately, but they will produce. Every complaint, every negative confession, every doubt-laced comment, those are weeds. They choke your future. But when you plant faith, power, purpose, and vision in your speech, you'll start to see your life bloom in ways you never imagined. And just like you don't plant an apple seed today and expect a tree tomorrow, don't be discouraged if your new speech doesn't yield instant results. Stay consistent, keep planting. The reason most people never see the power of their words is because they don't give it time to work. They start strong, talking success, talking vision, talking faith, but then something happens and they default back to their old vocabulary of defeat. That's like digging up a seed every time you don't see immediate growth. You've got to trust the process, speak what you desire, speak what you're becoming, and don't let current conditions make you change your confession. The atmosphere around your life is charged by the language you use. Words carry energy, they carry weight. They either lift your life or limit it. That's why the most powerful thing you can do when life gets heavy is not just to act differently, but to speak differently. Your words can be a thermostat or a thermometer. A thermostat just reports the temperature. A thermostat changes it. Too many people are walking around announcing their problems when they should be declaring their power. One of the most overlooked forms of sabotage is casual speech. The I'm just saying and the it's just a joke phrases we toss around without thought. But words don't understand sarcasm. They obey direction. Saying things like, I'm dead when you're laughing, or I can't stand people, or I always mess things up, even if said lightly, are still reinforcing patterns of negativity. The tongue has no sense of humor. It just creates. There's a reason ancient texts and modern psychology agree on the power of the tongue. Every major civilization and belief system recognizes that speech has divine qualities. You speak things into existence. That's not superstition, it's science and spirit working in harmony. Your thoughts shape your words and your words shape your world. So when you begin to govern your speech, you begin to govern your destiny. You start steering the ship instead of drifting through the storm. And once you get this, once you take full ownership of the words leaving your mouth, everything changes. You stop saying things that sabotage your progress. You stop reinforcing the labels others gave you. You stop letting fear get the final say. Instead, you speak from truth, from vision, from power. You speak as the version of yourself you're becoming, not the one you've been. That's when the game changes. Not just for you, but for every room you walk into, because your speech begins to shift atmospheres. The real battle isn't outside of you, it's in your mouth, because the words you speak to yourself set the boundaries of your life. If you want to change your finances, change how you speak about money. If you want better relationships, change how you speak about people. If you want peace, start talking peace. Talk like someone who's already arrived. Talk like someone who walks in favor. Talk like someone who walks in favor. Talk like someone who knows their words carry the weight of creation, because they do. The most important voice you'll ever hear is your own. Long before the world agrees or disagrees with you, you've already cast the first and most powerful vote with your self-talk. Every single day, people walk into situations already defeated, not because the odds were against them, but because their inner voice whispered, "You can't." That whisper becomes a wall. But that same voice can become a weapon. When you choose to speak strength into yourself, even when you feel weak, something inside you rises. Power isn't about how loud you shout in public, it's how firmly you affirm yourself in private. Self-talk is more than a habit, it's a foundation. You are constantly building or breaking yourself down based on the language you use when no one's listening. It's easy to look confident on the outside, but the real test is how you speak to yourself in the dark, when things are uncertain, when the plan isn't working, when no one is clapping. If in those moments you still say, "I've got this, I was made for this, I don't fold, I've finished," then your outcome will eventually catch up to your internal climate. Confidence isn't found, it's formed through repeated, intentional, self-directed speech. Most people think circumstances build character, but circumstances only reveal what your inner conversation has been all along. The person who falls apart under pressure didn't break in that moment. They had been breaking in silence. Every day they told themselves they weren't enough. And the person who stands tall in chaos didn't suddenly grow strong. They had been training their tongue to speak power over panic, purpose over problems, and faith over fear. Power begins not with external control, but with internal command. Your mind is always listening. It doesn't care whether you're serious, sarcastic, or just venting. It takes your words and forms your identity from them. That's why even jokingly calling yourself stupid, lazy, unlucky, or incapable does real damage. Your brain takes those repeated phrases and builds behavioral patterns around them. You begin to live out what you consistently say, even unintentionally. On the other hand, when you discipline yourself to speak words of ability, resilience, and excellence, your actions begin to rise to match your declarations. People often wait for motivation to start speaking powerfully, but that's backwards. Motivation doesn't produce powerful speech. Powerful speech produces motivation. You don't need to feel strong to speak strong. You need to speak strong so that strength can rise. Every champion you admire didn't wait until the lights were on to believe. They spoke like champions long before they became one. Their inner voice led their performance. That's the blueprint for true transformation. Change the voice, change the results. Negative self-talk is often learned behavior. It's not your voice, it's someone else's voice you adopted, a parent, a teacher, a failure from your past. It gets replayed like a broken record until you mistake it for your own. But you can replace that soundtrack. You can introduce a new voice, one rooted in truth, in vision, in what's possible instead of what went wrong. Replacing negative self-talk isn't about blind optimism. It's about strategic empowerment. It's about choosing language that serves your purpose instead of your past. When you hear yourself say things like, "I'm not ready, I always mess this up," or "I'll probably fail," recognize that those are not facts, they're forecasts. And you don't have to subscribe to that weather report. Self-talk is like a thermostat for your belief system. If it's set too low, no amount of effort will raise your performance sustainably. But when it's set high, When your self-talk reflects power, clarity, and confidence, your results rise to meeting. You don't have to wait for someone else to affirm you. You don't have to rely on applause to feel qualified. You don't need approval to be powerful. The most successful people in the world have mastered the art of coaching themselves through challenges with their words. They don't deny reality, but they dominate it by speaking truth louder than fear. They say things like, I will find a way. I am more than capable. And what I speak, I see. This is not delusion, it's direction. The challenge is that we've been trained to be humble to a fault, to downplay our gifts, to mute our confidence, to speak small so others don't feel uncomfortable. But you're not serving anyone by shrinking your speech. Speaking power doesn't mean you're arrogant. It means you're aware of what's inside you. It means you're aligning your words with your assignment. And if that offends small minds, that's not your problem. Self-talk is your sacred space. It's your responsibility to guard it and guide it toward greatness. When you begin each day speaking life into your identity, you're not just preparing for success. You're programming it. You are setting the tone. You are casting a vision. You are refusing to let doubt sit at your table. And while the results may not show up overnight, the change is immediate. Because the moment your inner voice starts speaking from power instead of pain, your life begins to shift from reaction to creation. You become a person who doesn't wait for circumstances to be perfect. You create power from within. Purpose is not something you find, it's something you choose, something you align with, and something you speak into your reality every single day. When your life lacks purpose, your words will follow that same drift, scattered, weak, uncertain. But when you wake up each morning with a clear sense of who you are and where you're going, your speech becomes sharp, deliberate, and unstoppable. Purpose creates clarity, and clarity creates focus. And the first place that focus shows up is in your language. People who know where they're going don't waste their breath on distractions. When your words are disconnected from your purpose, you end up speaking from your problems instead of your potential. You start commenting on everything instead of commanding your space. But when you are locked into purpose, you don't need to entertain every thought or argument. You begin to ignore what doesn't serve your assignment. You start choosing your words like you would choose weapons, strategically, carefully, and with intention. Your speech becomes a reflection of your direction, not your emotion. Purpose gives your voice authority. There's a difference between noise and voice. Noise reacts, voice creates. Purposeful people speak as though what they say matters, because it does. They're not tossing out phrases just to fill silence. They're speaking to build, to direct, to ignite. Even in casual conversations, you can feel the weight behind their words. That's not because they talk more. It's because they talk with aim. They don't say things for effect, they say things with effect. The dangerous thing about living without purpose is that your speech becomes passive. You start speaking if and maybe and hopefully instead of when, how, and now. You start leaking language that sounds uncertain, apologetic, and hesitant. But when your purpose is locked in, your vocabulary changes. You begin to say things like, I was made for this. This is just a step on the path. I'm moving with intention. Even when you don't feel 100%, your purpose keeps your mouth aligned with your mission. People who are driven by purpose don't let temporary emotions hijack permanent goals. They might feel fear, but they won't speak fear. They might face doubt, but they won't declare it. They speak vision even when the path is unclear, because they understand that words are seeds, and the only thing worse than planting the wrong seed is planting nothing at all. Silence in the face of uncertainty is still a decision. But purposeful speech becomes a compass when your eyes can't see the way forward. When you speak from purpose, you stop echoing what everyone else is saying. You stop parroting the fear in the culture or the chaos in your environment. Instead, you start speaking from a higher place, a place of calling. You become immune to the gossip, the negativity, the excuses. Because you know your purpose doesn't require popular opinion. It requires personal agreement. And once your mouth agrees with your purpose, your focus becomes bulletproof Distractions no longer have power over you. Most people drift not because they lack talent, but because they lack verbal alignment with their goals. They speak doubt into their dreams. They speak confusion into their clarity. They dilute their purpose by constantly second-guessing themselves out loud. But you can't live a powerful life with powerless language. If your purpose is clear, your speech must match it. If your future is valuable, your words must protect it. That means cutting off conversations that pull you backwards and building new patterns that propel you forward. Purpose doesn't just change what you say, it changes what you no longer say. You no longer curse your process. You no longer repeat the narrative that things never work out. You no longer participate in verbal pity parties. Your mouth becomes a filter, and only words that serve your future are allowed to pass through. That kind of discipline creates distance from distraction. While others are caught up in speaking about problems, you are too busy speaking about solutions, results. One of the most transformative decisions you can make is to ask yourself, do my words match my mission? If you say you want growth, do you speak like someone who grows? If you say you want impact, do your words carry impact? If you say you're destined for greatness, do your conversations sound like destiny or defeat? Purpose demands proof, and your proof starts in your mouth. When your daily speech reflects your deeper calling, your life begins to take on a new rhythm. You stop reacting and start creating. You stop doubting and start declaring. When you align your language with your life's assignment, you become immune to unnecessary noise. The voice of purpose drowns out the voice of panic. You no longer speak to be heard, you speak to be effective. And that effectiveness shows up not just in what you say, but in what you create because of what you say. People start noticing the difference. Not because you're louder, but because you're clearer. You carry direction, you carry fire, you carry something that can't be ignored because it's purpose-driven, and purpose always produces focus. Prosperity doesn't start with money, it starts with mindset. And that mindset is built brick by brick with the words you speak. You can't attract what you constantly reject with your language. You can't receive what you refuse to believe, and belief is always revealed in how you talk. When you speak with faith, your words become magnets for opportunity, favor, clarity, and results. Not because it's magic, but because faith is a frequency. And when your mouth is tuned to that frequency, you begin to draw in what aligns with your expectation. Most people think prosperity is about hustle, grind, and strategy, and yes, those matter. But strategy without belief is empty. Grind without inner agreement is exhausting. You have to first believe that what you're building has value, and that belief must be heard in your voice long before it shows up in your hands. If your mouth is filled with worry, doubt, fear, or lack, your life will always echo that sound. But if your mouth is filled with faith, even if the evidence hasn't caught up yet, your life begins to organize itself around your confession. Faith is not denying reality, it's declaring what's possible beyond it. It's the ability to speak life when everything around you looks like death. To say, I am blessed, not because your bank account is full, but because your source isn't your salary, is to declare opportunity is chasing me down while others are panicking about scarcity. It's to say clients are looking for me, solutions are coming to me, increase is on its way, not because it's wishful thinking, but because your words have creative power. What you continually confess, you eventually possess. The person who speaks in fear might work twice as hard as the one who speaks in faith and still lose. Why? Because fear chokes results. Fear speaks in limitation, speaks in doubt, speaks in what's missing. It shuts doors before you even reach them. But faith opens doors even before you knock. Not because the door is always easy, but because your speech positions you to approach with expectation instead of hesitation. You don't get what you fear, you get what you believe, and boldly declare. You say, I never have enough. You're making a withdrawal from your future. Every time you say, people like me can't win, you are sowing seeds of struggle. But when you say, I am positioned for increase, you are making a deposit. When you say value follows me wherever I go, you are stacking belief on top of belief. That compounded faith builds a reservoir inside you, and prosperity always flows to places of belief, not places of begging. The universe is not moved by desperation, it's moved by alignment. Faithful speech attracts people who think like you, move like you, and grow like you. It pulls the right networks, relationships, and partnerships into your orbit because confidence speaks a language of its own. When you speak increase, favor, purpose, and impact, not only do your actions change, but your environment changes. You stop fitting into spaces of scarcity. You begin standing out in rooms where boldness is the norm. Faith gives your voice gravity, and gravity draws. What you say consistently becomes the script of your life. If you keep saying, I don't know how, your mind will stop looking for solutions. But if you start saying, I figure things out, your mind becomes a solution finder. That's not motivational fluff, that's neuroscience. Your speech sets the mental filters through which your brain processes information. So when you speak faith, your brain starts noticing options instead of obstacles. And when you say I'm favored, you start seeing favor. When you say I attract abundance, your brain starts confirming that belief. You can't afford to be casual with your language if you want to live a life of prosperity. Words like just getting by, barely making it, struggling through may feel honest in the moment, but they are declarations that create momentum in the wrong direction. Instead, speak from the level you want to rise to. Speak as if you are already operating in that new level of income, impact, and influence. Speak with authority, not apology. Your future isn't waiting on your effort alone, it's waiting on your agreement with what's possible. Even when things are tight, when results are delayed, when the breakthrough hasn't yet arrived, keep speaking in alignment with the vision. Faith isn't just for when things are going well, it's for when nothing makes sense and you choose to believe anyway. You choose to say, I'm growing, I'm learning, this is working for my good, even if it looks like failure. That kind of speech separates people who just wish for prosperity from those who attract it, because what you speak in the valley determines how fast you rise to the mountain. If you want to elevate your life, elevate your language, you don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be intentional. Speak the result, not the resistance. Speak the outcome, not the obstacle. Speak what you see in your mind, not just what you see in the mirror. Because faith that is not spoken is not alive. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to train your mouth to agree with the version of you that already won. That version is waiting for you to start talking like it already exists. Change doesn't come from what you say once, it comes from what you say repeatedly. Your brain doesn't respond to occasional inspiration, it responds to consistent instruction. Every time you speak something out loud, your subconscious listens. But it listens even closer when you say it over and over again. The problem with most people isn't that they don't want better, it's that they speak better one day than speak defeat for the next 6. Repetition is what builds a new identity. Repetition is what builds a new standard. You become what you repeat, not what you visit. Most people underestimate the power of daily declaration because they're addicted to immediate results. They say something powerful in the mirror one time and wonder why nothing changes. But your reality is the product of accumulated conversations you've had with yourself over years. One drop of truth won't break through a wall of old beliefs unless you keep dripping it until the wall falls. You can't expect a new harvest if you only plant one seed. You must speak consistently, daily, and relentlessly until your words feel more real than your doubts. The science of neuroplasticity confirms what the spirit has always known. Your brain is changeable. It rewires itself based on repeated input. If you tell yourself every morning, I'm not enough, your brain wires itself to behave like someone who's not enough. But if you tell yourself, I am built for more, your brain rewires to support that identity. You start seeing differently. You move differently. You expect differently. And that shift doesn't come through hype, it comes through repetition. Faith comes by hearing, and you hear your voice more than anyone else's. There is a reason why the most powerful people in the world have affirmations, mantras, declarations, and personal creeds. It's not superstition, it's strategy. They understand that your outer world bows to your inner world, and your inner world is shaped by the phrases you rehearse. So while others waste their words on gossip, complaints, and distractions, high achievers use their voice as a tool to chisel their future. They speak it until they believe it, and then they speak it more until it becomes normal. Consistency of language creates consistency of energy. When you keep saying the same thing over and over again, especially when it's aligned with purpose and possibility, you generate internal power. You move with confidence, not because everything is certain, but because your internal narrative is stable. You're not riding the roller coaster of external validation. You've built your own track. You've trained your brain to expect greatness because you keep telling it, that's who I am, that's what I do. Some people call it delusion, but those people don't understand how change really works. If your current life is the result of repeated negativity, repeated limitations, repeated settling, then the only way to build something new is with repeated power, repeated intention, repeated declaration. You don't have to fake it, you just have to say it until it sinks so deep into your identity that your actions start following your affirmations without resistance. You're not trying to become someone new, you're reminding yourself of who you've always been under the noise. Repetition breaks resistance. In the beginning, speaking powerfully may feel uncomfortable. You might feel silly saying, I am a finisher, I am worthy of success, I create results everywhere I go. But that discomfort is proof that you're pushing against an old identity. And the only way to defeat that old pattern is to drown it out with truth. Day by day, sentence by sentence. You don't overcome weak thinking with silence. You overcome it with louder, stronger, repeated words of identity and intention. Every word you speak is a seed. Most people plant weeds with their words, then wonder why their garden is overrun with doubt. But repetition is how you turn a barren field into a vineyard. You keep sowing the same truth. I am disciplined, I am growing, I am trusted, I am valuable, I am wealthy in mind and mission. The ground may resist it at first, but if you keep planting, the ground has no choice but to yield. So that's the power of repeated speech. It wears down resistance and builds up result. Think about the way advertising works. The more you hear something, the more you believe it. It doesn't have to be true, it just has to be repeated. Now flip that principle in your favor. Start advertising your destiny to yourself. Market your greatness to your subconscious. Be the voice that sells your purpose to your inner critic until it stops arguing. Tell yourself every day that you are exactly who you need to be to build what you were born to build. You are not waiting for a sign. You are creating signals through the sound of your speech. You can't afford to be quiet with your transformation. Whispered goals don't lead to loud outcomes. You've got to speak like the future is already here. Say it when you don't feel it. Say it when it doesn't look like it. Say it when no one else believes it, because the one who wins is the one who stays consistent long enough to become undeniable. Repetition is the drumbeat of destiny, and the louder you beat it, the faster your life starts to march in rhythm. Who you believe you are is shaped first by what you repeatedly say about yourself. Your identity is not simply formed by your experiences. It's formed by the interpretation of those experiences and the words you use to define them. The story you tell yourself about yourself becomes your truth, even if it's not the truth. If you keep saying, I always mess things up, I'm just not built for success, or I don't have what it takes, you're giving instructions to your identity and it will obey. Your words are the blueprint. Your identity is just following the plan. Every word you speak about yourself sends a message to your internal system. That system begins aligning thoughts, emotions, habits, and behaviors around that message. If the message is broken, the identity becomes broken. If the message is empowering, the identity becomes powerful. You are not stuck because of circumstances. You are stuck because of a cycle of self-talk that has created an identity loop. The only way to break that loop is to rewrite the script you've been reciting for years. Not once, daily. Identity isn't static, it's shaped, it evolves, and nothing shapes it faster than your own voice. The difference between someone who rises and someone who stays the same isn't just environment or opportunity, it's who they believe they are. And that belief is reflected and reinforced by language. The person who says, I'm a problem solver, finds solutions. The one who says, I always get stuck, finds more walls. Mouth is a mirror, and the reflection you keep describing becomes the person you live as. What you say about yourself in private is more powerful than what you show in public. Public confidence means nothing if your private identity is still weak. You can dress up, smile big, and impress the world, but if your self-talk is tearing you down, your outer world will eventually match your inner world. That's why true transformation doesn't begin with behavior, it begins with language. Until you change what you say to yourself, you'll keep defaulting to the same level of results, no matter how much you try to change your action. Many people try to change their life without changing their language, and that's why they stay frustrated. You can't build a new life with old vocabulary. You can't unlock new outcomes with the same self-defeating phrases. If your identity is trapped in words like, I'm not good enough, I've always struggled, I can't change, then no strategy will stick. Identity always wins, and identity is always fed by language. So you gotta upgrade your language if you want to upgrade your life. Now, this doesn't mean lying to yourself. It means speaking from the highest version of you instead of the history that haunts you. There is a future version of you that's already successful, focused, disciplined, healed, impactful, and your job is to give that version a voice now. Speak like that person would speak. Declare what that person would declare. Describe yourself not based on where you've been, but where you're called to be. Identity doesn't come from your past, it comes from your decisions. And one of the most powerful decisions is to choose how you talk about yourself. When you change your identity through language, you start seeing yourself differently, and that changes everything. Suddenly, you don't tolerate the same habits because that's not who you are anymore. You don't stay in the same cycles because that's not your story anymore. You don't shrink in fear because you're not the kind of person who backs down anymore. And all of this starts by saying out loud, this is who I am now. Not when you have proof, but before you do. Because identity creates action, not the other way around. Words like, I'm consistent, I'm disciplined, I'm a finisher, I show up, might feel unnatural at first, but they're training your identity to rise. Don't wait until you feel like that person. Talk like that person until you become them. You're not faking. It's formation. You're not pretending. It's programming. Every time you speak with intention, your subconscious adjusts. Every time you declare a higher version of yourself, your mind starts to normalize that identity and push you to live it out. You've been trained by repetition to identify with struggle, with failure, with limitation. That training didn't happen overnight. It came from years of accidental agreement with small thinking. But the good news is identity can be retrained. And the tool is your mouth. Every phrase you repeat with boldness becomes a brick in your new foundation. And the stronger the foundation, the stronger the structure. If you speak strength, you will carry strength. If you speak vision, you will walk with vision. If you speak success, you will begin to demand alignment with that success. The secret to lasting change isn't doing more, it's being more. And to be more, you must first speak more powerfully, more clearly, more intentionally. Your identity is always listening, waiting for instructions, shaping itself based on the sentences you feed it. You don't need outside permission to become who you were meant to be. You just need to stop speaking from the place of limitation and start speaking from the place of destiny. Because when you speak like the person you are becoming, the person you are now begins to move out of the way.